All right. Thanks everybody for being here. My name's Stephen Goldmeyer. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the IDRA board president. Very happy to have everybody here. I have been involved in IDRA for a very long time, and I'm always think our monthly calls, our monthly meetings, while they vary in focus and in size, are just such a great, diverse place for discussions to happen. I'm very grateful for Paul to be here presenting on this topic. I'll start with a little brief introduction to IDRA. Most people here will know what IDRA is, but as a reminder, IDRA stands for the Indigent Defense Research Association. We are an affiliated group of researchers, practitioners, funders, all sorts of folks who are interested in research around indigent defense, and particularly we're interested in things like empirical and data focused research, sorry, on indigent defense and how that can improve the delivery of indigent defense and the quality of outcomes and the satisfaction for clients and the lives of the clients we serve through real empirical research. IDRA rhymes with Hydra, as Janet Moore, one of our founders, said, is to connote an entity that is many-headed and hard to kill, and that's proven true. IDRA has lasted a very long time and has had a lot of different leaders and a lot of different functions. So grateful to the IDRA community for being a part of this call and always, coming up with ideas for calls and things like that. We will have a solicitation coming out soon for our spring conference. If folks, you can always volunteer and suggest ideas for our monthly calls, but there'll be an opportunity for our virtual conference to share your research or your thoughts or your discussions with our group over the course of a couple days of a conference. The only other thing I'll say before we get started is we have a website, and on that website, we have a link to join our listserv if you're not on it already. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that there's also a donate button on the website in case you want to contribute to IDRA financially. We don't have high financial needs, but we do have some, and we're very, very grateful for everybody who contributes to those needs. It keeps the website running, keeps us the Zoom account running, keeps the listserv up and running, so contributions are always greatly appreciated. With all of that annoying stuff out of the way, let's get to the fun part. Paul, we'd love to hear from you today, and thanks again for volunteering. And yeah, hopefully we'll have a great discussion. Thank you, Paul. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. And I'm just going to take a moment as a board member to help Stephen Torin actually sent out the solicitation for the virtual conference just a few minutes ago. So I'm actually going to we are looking for I'll just put that link in the chat for the forms to submit your presentation for the virtual. But anyway, so yes, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to get to speak to this group today. I uh, will not be talking a lot about data today. However, I'll probably give some anecdotal, just more qualitative values received from this. But let me go ahead and share my screen. And perfect. So, just a quick little background about me so that you can understand where I'm coming from. I worked for Pima County, which is a urban county, the second largest in Arizona, at about 1.2 million in population. Our public defense system there developed over the time. I actually worked for Pima County for 15 years up until about 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago now. And so I got to see it evolve greatly from just a couple of public defense offices and a managed assigned counsel office to five public defense offices and a managed assigned counsel office. And so I very much worked there and started this work of trying to use Public Defense Day or Gideon Day to really try to drive a little bit more action around it. Unfortunately, COVID kind of put a stop to my abilities to try to help that grow. But then I left Pima County to go to Pinal County because they were creating a public defense office there, and I was super excited to be a part of that. They were separating the managed assigned counsel. Well, they didn't have a managed assigned counsel office; they were separating contract attorneys from the courts and creating a public defense office. And so I couldn't help but start that process again. One of the things that I have been fortunate to be a part of in my upbringing is really being a part of politics outside of my government public service work. And as I started as a public servant, I really recognized that Lawyers generally avoid the media and politicians. I'm not sure why that is, or at least that's been my experience when I've spoken to public defenders. Maybe not all lawyers, but public defenders especially. They really sort of shy away from the media, understandably so. It can be quite a problem for your clients at times. But I had the distinct honor of having both a public defender who was very politically involved and as well as a deputy public defender and my former boss who became the public defender later, who very much enjoyed talking to media about his cases and was quite successful in it over his time. And so between all of that, I really was able to form a better understanding and greater interest in getting community engagement. Separate from that, I also served on nonprofits that were coalition based. And so very much the power of people, the power of words with people. And so all of that has sort of allowed me to grow into an individual who can really try to put this work forward. And so with that, I'm going to just kind of go into strengthening public defense through community engagement. So first of all, just in case those who don't know, I'm pretty sure everybody in this call would know, but Gideon versus Wainwright was a U.S. Supreme Court decision in 1963. Clarence Earl Gideon was essentially a poor defendant who was charged with breaking into a local tavern that he had a key to. So actually, I don't think he was charged with breaking in. I think he was charged with just theft, petty theft, because he stole a bottle of wine, a half-drinking bottle of wine, packed of cigarettes, some money out of a coin machine. So a pretty minimal amount, but he did get a prison sentence, and he was later able to write a petition to the U.S. Supreme Court because he didn't have a lawyer at the time, asking for a lawyer. Now, part of this, interestingly enough, he did actually in court make a really good record for himself, asking for an attorney from the judge, stating that he felt like he needed one. The judge did deny it. Another interesting fact about Gideon, just one of those things that kind of helps out, is one of his cellies in prison happened to be a lawyer, or former lawyer, who was charged, I think, with murder. I think he was found guilty of murder. And so he was serving a sentence in there. And so I think the lawyer also helped him write the petition in such a way that the Supreme Court was really interested in reviewing this case. But ultimately, the Supreme Court decided that, yes, the Sixth Amendment guarantees right to counsel, and that doesn't just mean that if you can afford one, you get to have one in there, that actually the court should be appointing them for you. So ultimately creating public defense, which is why so many public defense offices celebrate Gideon v. Wainwright. It's one of the really kind of finding moments. There were some public defense offices before Gideon v. Wainwright, just to be sure. I won't go into the history of that, but ultimately the sprawl of public defense offices across the country, as well as managed assigned counsel offices, stemmed from Gideon v. Wainwright's decision. So it's one of the reasons that I think it's really important to relive that story too, is to talk about the fact that people were getting prison sentences for petty theft and other means. And there's a really great quote I'll go into later with Hugo Justice Black from that decision. So our strategy that we've really done in Pinal County is we've really taken that history and tried to turn it into more of an experiential education that allows us to engage our community a little bit more. So we've used Gideon v. Wainwright to create different types of events, which I'll go into those different types of events. But the idea behind it is really to get people to understand. I think a lot of public defense offices use the anniversary to sort of celebrate their own, which I think is important. And I absolutely believe there's a good balance to celebrating those who have been serving in your office, the staff, the attorneys. But I also think that there's really an importance in making sure that that education is shared with the rest of the community. Because ultimately, actually, I find that attorneys and staff feel even have a greater morale about their jobs and about what they do when they see the community truly appreciating what they do, understanding what they do a little bit more, maybe not entirely, but at least a little bit more, and really getting behind that concept. And so I believe that if you can engage the community in a more experiential education, that you're ultimately going to make your attorneys and staff feel better as well. And so this is where we've sort of taken a different role. Again, NAPD has done a lot of work on trying to get it on your social media, make your people celebrated. But we really tried to open our doors to our building and trying to change the way that we have done that. So with that, I just want to talk a little bit about um, some of the ways that we've done it, and then I'm going to go into some a little toolkit that I did. So the first one that I did in Pinal County, we did not do this in Pima County, but it was simply because I hadn't thought of it yet. But in Pinal County, we actually did an abridged reenactment of the original Gideon trial. I have the trial transcript. By the way, I created a toolkit for these 5 events and just for hosting um, Public Defense Day celebrations as a community engagement model that I will share in the chat at the end. But one of those toolkits, blueprints includes the trial transcript for Gideon v. Wainwright. It's actually an amazing trial transcript to read, just in the sense of like, there's a little bit of comedy in it because the witnesses themselves were not very well prepared by the state for setting a good case for the state. Gideon himself sort of asked some questions in a way that kind of set a good record, but also highlighted how unprepared he could be as a defendant. So it was an incredible transcript. And we had our attorneys and some staff play the parts of Gideon, the prosecutor, the judge, some of the witnesses. And we actually booked it in a courtroom. It was actually the courtroom that was built in 1891 as a part of our application for statehood in Arizona. So it was kind of like a historical thing in itself. But we hosted this for the public and the community to come watch. We invited our board members. We actually had a couple of board members come to the trial reenactment, so that was really great. It was a really fun experience. I think that for one, our lawyers had never read the transcript, never really, maybe seen Gideon's trumpet, but outside of that, never really knew all the details of the case. So that was kind of just this fun moment to just sort of sit around and laugh about some of the facts in the case, but also for them to get up there and then to show this community like this is what happened and to try to get into character. And some did a better job of getting into character than others, but it was really a celebratory event. We had some decorated cookies that we had printed with different things. I think I have a picture of those decorated cookies here in a moment. This is actually a picture of the courtroom and our different individuals. We have some of the attorneys there, and then one of our attorneys is Gideon in the background, and so it was just a really great event that really sort of engaged people in a different way and helped them understand what this trial is all about. This is the copy of the screenshot of this transcript, which is in the toolkit. And these are some of the cookies that we had. One of them says what, like it's hard. Another one says allegedly in quotes. The gentleman on the left is actually our county manager. And then the public defender to the right, and then public defense services director. And actually the gentleman on the far right is actually one of our board members. It was a really great event that showed a lot of support from the community. We had local individuals from the museum and from the library show up as well. And so just a really nice event. We got some little bit of coverage in the news. Just all around something that I really enjoyed, and I really think any office would actually have a great time with redoing this trial. So the next kind of thing that we did was we wanted to focus a little bit on the holisticness of what we do. And so we worked actually with a local art group that did art with incarcerated individuals or got art from incarcerated individuals. And they actually had a little shop in Tucson that sells some of this art. And so we were able to then sort of bring that art in. Some of it was actually for sale. Some of it got purchased through the nonprofit that does this with the incarcerated individuals, which gets them funds back on their books. And so we were able to have the art there. We were able to talk about the struggle and the trauma that you can see in some of this art from clients. And so really trying to celebrate who they are and recognize that they are human beings and the challenges that they experience through the system. This event really, I think, was kind of a really great one for both our staff and attorneys because they really actually saw the value of seeing the client's, art sort of expressed in a different way. And I've thought about in the future, possibly doing one with like a poetry, because I think we get some poetry. And one of the things that I wish we did, which we didn't do, because we were really working with this nonprofit to focus the art from the nonprofit, but many of our lawyers have art from clients in their offices, and also allowing them to sort of present that art and talk about that, client maybe in a vague way, or maybe getting the client's permission to talk about the case. That would have been another great thing that we would have loved to have seen done. We also, our building was being built at the time. And so, oh, there's the art. But our building was being built at the time. And so we also did sort of a tour of the building as it was being built. We took a day with no construction to sort of see it in its work, because we had a building just for public defense services being created at that time. It was a really great event. We didn't have quite as much community involvement from it. A little bit of community involvement, but again, I think that for those who did come, they really saw our clients more as human beings in a different way, and saw the talent and the beauty that they can present. Um, and you'll see that underneath each photo there was the nonprofit does like a little photo of the individual and a little story about who they are and what they did. And then this is the tour of our public defense building as well. Um, these events, by the way, I'm going to talk a little bit more about getting the board as a proclamation, but every time we would also make sure that the board is proclaiming the day as Public Defense Day. And also at the board meetings, we would talk about, what we're doing for our Public Defense Day and inviting the public and them to come in. And so that was another way to just get more involvement. We would generally, our communications department from the county would send out a newsletter to the rest of the county. And then occasionally it would actually get put on the paper's website as well. So that was also something that was kind of nice to have. And a really easy way to get some exposure, by the way, is if you have it proclaimed by your board, you're able to do that. Another event that we did, and then I'll go into a little bit more after we get done with these events, but we did a path of a case open house. We had just got our building done. And so we tried to figure out a way to get them to walk through our building. And as a part of it, we decided to focus on the modern legal process. We did kind of a walkthrough. They got sort of like a scenario of a potential case with a script of each of the different things from arrest and what does the public defender do in each of these moments. And so you can kind of see the pathway over here where we had an arrest and then we had the IA. We do have public defenders at IAs. And then the plea negotiation process, the trial, the sentencing, probation violations, etc. And so members of the community were able to come in, and a lot of our partners too. We invited, for this particular one, we started inviting a lot of our justice system partners to come to it as well. And I was actually quite surprised at the turnout from justice system partners who were also learned things. They expressed, how much that they had not known about what we do on a day-to-day basis, and this really sort of brought forward what we do. And I really do think that it was actually sort of a greater success by inviting the justice system partners. We did have members of the public as well, but it really was kind of this new thing that we had not thought about before, but recognizing that maybe they don't know who we are or what we do in our day to day as much as they see us in court. And then again, we also still had board members coming along. Our staff really enjoyed it. Our attorneys also kind of tried to work the stations to talk about the different things. We did scripts for everybody so that they could kind of talk about, the different processes and what the lawyers do. And it was all around just an incredible event to get people to really understand where we are in our day to day. One of the other things we did for our own morale is we actually are fortunate to have a lawyer created a Miranda Land. It's kind of somewhere between a Candyland and a Monopoly, but it's a great CLE for the attorneys, really kind of highlighting what they needed to know. It would be way too difficult for just a lay person, a community person to play, but some of the staff enjoyed watching the lawyers play and do the game, and so that was something else that we did for that particular day. Moving forward, we did a Know Your Rights trivia. So we talked a lot about just the different rights that you have, and they were sort of questions. They were posed as questions that the individuals could have. And then also, whether you got the answer right or wrong, for one, if you got it wrong, we would explain, what the real answer was and what law or case law backed that up. But then also we did a jail commissary as our giveaway. It made it affordable, but we gave away chips and candies and stuff. But we actually got our jail commissary list from the jail and the prices next to them. And so as people got a bag of chips, they got to find out that our clients pay, $2.75 for a bag of chips. And so it was sort of also, while it was partly a know your, like a, learn your rights, an event for the community, it was also sort of an educational opportunity for them to learn about the cost to family members for these types of events and or for these types of things that they get at the jail. And so we had a pretty good turnout for this one as well. There's the commissary in the background that you can see. And then one of our staff sort of had like a little trivia ring and they just press a button and get a randomized question. And really a kind of a fun event that we just a different way of engaging. And we did invite justice system partners who also didn't always answer the know your rights questions correctly, which was always kind of fun to point out that they don't know the rights either. Not to pick on them, but more just to point out that it's complicated, that the rights out there are really quite difficult. So a very fun event that we had a really great time doing as well. And then this final one that we did this year, because it was the 250th birthday of America, we actually celebrated the 63rd anniversary by weaving it into our constitutional history. So we did sort of a historical walkthrough at the part of the building, um, and and really, I actually sort of took a little bit of design from the African American Museum in DC, where if you haven't been in it, it starts out in a very dark and kind of narrow hallway, and kind of walks you through, and it gets wider as you go. And I stole that mindset a little bit. And so as we started out with just the Declaration of Independence and talking about the inalienable rights, moving into the Sixth Amendment and the right to counsel, and pointing out that it really took another 185 years before we ever got to the point where the Sixth Amendment was actually opened up through Gideon to be able to grant counsel on an everyday basis for cases. And then as they sort of opened up into this brighter hallway after Gideon, we really tried to highlight all of this case law that has come since 1963, which was actually quite a bit. It was really kind of a great list of different cases to highlight and show, and sort of pointing out that, these cases have really grown from the fact that public defense exists and that before that, there was no Miranda rights. There were no rights to mitigation in capital cases and et cetera. And so by having public defenders who've done that, and we also sort of gave them the imagery of being in a hallway that was directly under where lawyers were working at that moment, and that the people were the foundation of the footsteps of what we do. And so we really did a great job with that one. We had a lot of really great feedback from the public, and then also from our board, and I'll talk about our board in just a moment and their makeup of constitutionality. But we thought it was a really great event. I think you could do it even with it not being the 250th birthday. You could still kind of walk through this, case law through the making. We did do some workshops as well on emotional wellness and stress management for our lawyers and staff. We had a really great presentation from an individual who kind of talked about that and sort of, coping with loss, for clients, and recognizing that even if you lose, you really did them a service being next to them throughout the case, and that's something they didn't always have, and sometimes some clients really still go without a lawyer that they really valued, and so if you can be a valuable lawyer that they really appreciated, it can be something that's meaningful regardless of the way. And so this is just some more photos. This is kind of the dark moments of looking at Barron, before the 14th Amendment. In Barron, they basically said that the federal rights don't actually apply to any of the states. And then after the 14th Amendment, recognizing that, yeah, any federal right does actually apply to all states, which ultimately set us up later for our ability to have public defenders across the country. This is sort of the petition. We actually had the full petition from Gideon up on the wall there in the background, and kind of in like a dark type of cell type of thing. It was really just a closet, but we sort of tried to make it look like a cell, and we just highlighted some big words for it as well. And yeah, members of the public were really quite intrigued. We even had some local economic business members show up to this one. So I think we kind of got a different crowd. And again, just trying to continue to look for different audiences and what they might look at and look for. Um, and then this is sort of in the bigger hallway and going through the timeline of different cases as we kind of walk through as cases continue to get more and more developed now that public defense exists throughout the time. So it was really a great event that I think really kind of showed us a different way to sort of educate people and engage. We did short summaries of each case and what they did, and really tried to highlight it in a way that was a narrative story that they might relate to or connect to or recognize. Like, yeah, I do believe. I mean, if you ask people, do they believe in Miranda rights? Most people would say, well, of course, and it's something every cop does, so it's probably fine. But showing them that it came from all these different cases. It actually came from Arizona, thankfully for us. But in general, we tried to sort of acknowledge most of the federal cases that have been developed. This is actually an individual from our Chamber of Commerce. She was there. We created a little passport so that as you're walking through, you could be reflective um, and kind of understand what you're seeing and what you're experiencing. And just a really great event. So I want to talk a little bit about our keys for success and also what I think would be successful for most people. Going back to that narrative storytelling, I really think what we have found works well is when you humanize the law and also public defense work. I think a lot of people, a lot of public defenders that I talk to shy away from this sometimes because they recognize that when you start to talk about your client, people say, well, they've committed a crime. I think that if you really focus around the fact that the law is designed to recognize, human beings, um, it really does sort of people just sort of grab a hold of that and believe in the law, and so it we really haven't had people sort of focus on, or people who show up at least focus on, well, your clients, committed a crime, which we don't even know that they did. They've only been accused of committing a crime. But we've really found that narrative storytelling to work well. Using those reenactments, those timelines, client-focused art has really helped in that sense. And then again, I just think these immersive experiences has really sort of engaged people in a different way. We have our board members now. Just to talk about one of our qualitative successes is they'll even tell people, a little bit about Gideon, because they've learned about it through our proclamation. We always kind of talk about who Gideon is, and they've heard it enough times now every year that they'll even kind of say, oh yeah, that was the poor guy who got to prison for supposedly stealing something. They know that he went back and had a retrial and that he was found not guilty. And they really look for us in an event now when we go to community events at resource fairs or even different criminal justice things. Um, they actually kind of remember public defenders as sort of the fun people. Um, and so it's something that we really kind of valued. I also just want to point out one thing that I think a lot of people, this is in my toolkit, especially I call it out, but I think a lot of public defenders are also like, well, I don't want to really put ourselves out there. But just so you know, they do this for Domestic Violence Week, Victims' Rights Weeks, law enforcement and safety, first responders have these days or these weeks that they're going before your councils or your board or your elected officials and having them declare these days. And so it isn't a weird thing. It's not something that you're sort of getting out there and doing something different. I would actually argue that we've been doing a disservice to our clients by not doing this for such a long time because we've allowed everyone else to do this and haven't been putting that in the forefront on what we do. So I really just want to highlight that as well, because when you go out there and you talk about these stories and you do these experiences, they're doing it. And so, we've been sort of laxed in not coming to the table and bringing it forward as well. So I want to play a quick video just to talk about this board meeting, and then I'm going to play, and then I'll come back and talk about it a little bit. But it's short.
Proclaiming March 8th as Public Defense Day, and in honor of the 63rd anniversary of the Supreme Court ruling in Gideon versus
At this
Wainwright.
time in the United States, you had a right to counsel. Certainly, it's in the Sixth Amendment, but you had to pay for it. And Mr.
Is the audio cutting out for everybody else or just me?
We can hear it.
Okay, perfect. For some reason, it's cutting out for me, but if it's going away for you, that's
Oh,
good.
sorry, it's cutting out, but it's
Oh, okay, cool. I'm actually going to mute myself to see if maybe I'm causing the problem.
United States. You had a right to counsel, certainly, it's in the Sixth Amendment, but you had to pay for it. And Mr. Gideon.
no, you're muted,
Yeah,
Paul.
it has stopped and you're muted, Paul.
Yes, sorry about that. I'm just gonna improvise a little bit because
Okay.
I realized that I exported this video from the editor that I did, and apparently it didn't do the audio quality as well. So I'm gonna do it from here. So I
Yes,
apologize about that.
proclaiming
And if you can turn it up just a touch, that'd be awesome.
Day and in honor of the 63rd
Um,
anniversary of the Supreme Court ruling in Gideon
I think it's
versus
okay.
Time in the United States. You had a right to counsel, certainly, it's in the Sixth Amendment, but you had to pay for it. And Mr. Gideon did not have any
no, now it's not working. Well, that's so great.
trial went
Let me
on.
see if it gets
He
better.
was found guilty, and it was a big day, for all of us. And now we
No, apparently, man, I listened to this 5 times before exporting it, and then now that I've exported it, it didn't
The
get it.
United States Supreme Court.
That is so weird. All right, well, I apologize about that because I will try to find the video and play it because I think there was a couple of key points that I really just wanted to grab. And so let me grab the original video and I'll just cut to a couple of things because I really thought it was
proclamation
valuable.
proclaiming March 8th as Public Defense Day and in honor of the 63rd anniversary of the Supreme Court ruling in Gideon versus Wainwright. I have Ms.
Hmm. Well, somehow by me just sharing my video, because it's cutting out now from the original. So somehow it is something about the quality of sharing a video while I'm doing it. So I'll send the link to the short video in the chat and you can watch it. I think the main thing that I really was trying to highlight is we talk about the story of Gideon a little bit, and then I'll see if I can find this piece and maybe it'll come through well. Um, but there's a
got this
kind of a
procedural history.
back
Yes,
and
it was
forth.
the judge.
He was the judge. Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, the one of the board members is really trying to uh, talk about, how the reason that Gideon versus Wainwright is Wainwright was a judge, and that it was the judge who had made the mistake, and it's just a very interesting kind of back and forth, if you will, of um, between the board because they're now more engaged. They've become educated over the years that we've done this. They've become engaged. They've become very much interested in this story and in sort of explaining it to others and talking about it, which it really shows to me the success that we've had over the last 5 years in that our board looks forward to these moments and wants to talk about it and wants to share the story with others. And so when I think about like, has this been successful? That's one of them. Another thing that I would just like to sort of highlight in that success as well is that uh, they are oftentimes sort of sharing in with the joy. The one thing that the board member does, I don't think I'm going to be able to capture it, but maybe we will.
Public Defense Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. And I say not guilty. Okay.
Ah, we got the not guilty. Perfect. At the end of the proclamation, he declared not guilty. Not for any particular crime, but it just shows that they really found joy and they understand what we're about and they understand that what we're trying to do. And to me, that is like the greatest measurement of the success that we've had is that they think about who we are. And so when we're dealing with budget issues, they know what we're trying to do and they believe in it. And so when I think about like, why do this? I mean, your budget requests are seen in a different manner. When we had our building build, which was the building was approved before public defense days were ever done, so I can't attribute the building to that. But at our building, many of them were wearing Gideon hats. We had bought Gideon hats on Gideon v. Wainwright Day, and we had them at the building opening, and they were wearing a hat because that's what they believed in. And so I really think that, like, here is a board, by the way, that is a very pro law enforcement board, very much believes in the law. But in so they have learned that the Constitution, that our founding fathers wrote these things in, the Sixth Amendment, because they believed in people having attorneys, and that it's our greatest duty as a country to protect individuals from government, doing the wrong thing or getting the wrong person, and also just overstepping their bounds. And so we've really kind of seen this board who, probably at the beginning, if you would have told them, public defenders are great, assets to the counties, I don't know that they would have agreed with you, but over the years they've really found that. So again, just to kind of talk about these things, I created a toolkit, and I'm going to put the link in the chat for the PowerPoint and for the toolkit, because I think that it is uh, they're valuable. The toolkit I've really designed in a way so that anybody who's never even done something as a proclamation in front of an elected board, you can understand how to get that done. Also, how to address the board, because there is a specific way to address elected officials. And I've also given these 5 events, just sort of a blueprint on how to do them. But you really have to treat the Gideon anniversary sort of as a living event to the community, because I really think that one of the things that also helps the board get behind it is when they come to these events after the board proclamation, and they come to Public Defense Day and they see community members interested and engaged, they then feel almost obligated or even willing and joyfully partaking in the celebration of public defense and Gideon Wainwright. And so that just continues to build more support. And so then when we ask for a mitigation specialist, or we ask for more money for experts, they really can get behind that mission. And I really think that it's something that we need to do more of. And so my call to action to anybody who works with public defense offices is, that we really need to do these events more. We need to make sure that they're a part of it. And I really think in the local, you can get the governor to declare Public Defense Day, and that's all well and good. But I actually think that the local municipalities is where you're going to make the greater impact. If you're obviously a state-funded system, you should probably also get the governor to do something. But I think that the newspapers are going to care more about local events, about local things happening. And so even if you're a statewide office, having maybe 3 or 4 events across the state would be something that would be really valuable to do, because when public defense starts to get this support across different states, our elected officials go to these national conferences, and they start to understand, oh yeah, we all kind of believe in public defense. That's so weird. Like, I just thought I was weird because I was in my county. But I think as they all start to talk to each other and realize that everybody's getting behind this foundation of public defense, they really will get on board with it. And so, oh, sorry. This is actually our ribbon cutting, by the way. These are our board members. You can see a couple of them wearing Gideon hats that they brought from a Public Defense Day, which is kind of cool. And really just kind of celebrating what we were accomplishing in having a building that was built for us. And this is actually, we had a statewide public defenders directors meeting that was hosted at our building. And our board members showed up actually, because they were quite proud of the fact that their county was hosting the statewide public defense. And then it also got our presiding judge and our court administrator to come, because they were like, well, if the board's going, we should probably be there and get our, self-seen supporting public defense as well. And so it's been just a really great development that we have found to help, again, our budget, but also even just our morale. We've really tried to balance our morale and our public awareness on these days. And I think, again, that as our employees and our attorneys see that we're being valued by the community, it just gives them a greater sense of morale as a whole. And that this is the last photo that we did. We always kind of do a photo with the proclamation with the board, and just a really great supportive event. And we did have Haley Davis there, who's holding the proclamation. She's actually kind of a newer lawyer. We try to get different line attorneys to actually read the proclamation, which you didn't get to see because the video was cutting out for whatever reason. She actually did her first trial the week after this. So it was kind of a fun thing to see her do this at the board meeting, and then see her do her first trial the week after. And the board had heard prior to the meeting that she was doing that. So with that, I want to leave some time for questions. I do think that if there's anything that you can get from this, it is that doing Public Defense Day outside of just your own office and outside of just like a social media post on your page where maybe only yourself and your clients and maybe your resources that work with you, getting it outside of that box is a really can be very valuable, especially if you commit to it over the years and keep doing it again and again. They will start to realize who you are and realize that the community is engaged with this conversation. And ultimately that helps you in budget season. It helps, clients in general just get a greater deal of respect. And it helps your lawyers sort of walk around more proud of what they're doing, knowing that the community is behind them as well. With that, I did put the toolkit in the chat. I put the PowerPoint in the chat. I'm always here if you have questions or you're planning something for Public Defense Day, which is again, it's March 18th. So we have a whole year now, but it's a good time to start planning. I'm already planning our 2027. But if you have questions, you can always reach out to me, but you can also ask now if anybody has any in particular.
Thanks so much, Paul. That's fantastic. Really looked like a lot of fun things happening, and I'm excited about these ideas. We'll see if any questions, hands come up, people come off mute to ask questions. I'll sort of start with a question because I think this is totally fantastic and it brings, like you said, the work outside of the walls and into a wider community. I wonder if you've thought about ways to incorporate clients, folks who have been like involved in the system in this
Yeah.
work more directly. Um,
That Yeah, that's a great question. I really have thought about we did the art with the nonprofit, and I really do wish that we had done some sort of like poetry reading or just essay reading. Having a successful former client read the proclamation is on my list in the future as well, because I think that that would be something to highlight, like what are they doing now, and that these individuals come back into our community. That could really be something that I think would be another great way to engage them in this process, for sure. Because I think that you're right. We need to do that more, and we've really sort of tried to start out with just sort of the lawyers and the staff with our board, and I think that now we're sort of getting to a place where we really can expand it out and help them see these individuals, after it's all over, and maybe even a client that was found innocent would be another powerful story as well.
yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, go ahead, please, friend.
Um, I have two questions. One, can you tell us a little bit about who's on your board? Because it sounds like maybe they are people who aren't totally familiar with Gideon. That's like a different model than our board. And two, is there any way, maybe it's in your toolkit, but is there any way we can get a copy, or I could talk to the person who developed the game? Because I'm also interested in incorporating games into training materials.
Absolutely. So yeah, so for Miranda Land, I did not put the contact for that person who did that, but I have his contact information. And I can get you in touch. So if you send me an email, I'd be glad to get you in touch with him. He used to do it at our statewide public defender conferences, and hasn't done it the last few years. He's just been busy. But yeah, absolutely, I definitely think he'd be willing to share that. And then as for our board, I was actually so one of our board members, our chair, who's probably our greatest advocate. He's not always been our chair, but he actually worked in California with some regional behavioral health authorities as like a project manager and kind of higher up manager. And so he's originally from California, and he did that. Our other board member was a house builder, roofer, contractor. Very much farmer, kind of, supports the farmers, and really sort of kind of a pull yourself up by your bootstraps and support yourself kind of house builder. Another board member owns a gun shop, and before becoming a board member. He was the mayor of his small town. But outside of that, his job has been running a gun shop. And so he's uh, very much around that style. Another board member is, um, I'm not sure exactly what he did before being a board member, but he's kind of within the Mormon community um, and supports the suburbs of, uh, of of our county and does a lot of work with that community and business mindset. And then our other board member is from a small town and very much like business, economics, and no nonsense government. Really kind of they all generally all five of them belong to the same party. I'll leave the party out of it, but I think you all could guess. But I will say one thing about our board that I've always really found valuable is they really value employees. They believe that if we're taxing our people, then we should be providing good quality service. And so one of the nice things is we've really focused our messaging around good quality service in our field is great lawyers and all that holistic support around that and ancillary services. And they understand that and they respect that and believe in that. Also, I don't think my boss is on here, but I don't mind saying she's always said that she could make a drinking game out of the number of times that I use the word Constitution when addressing the board. I really do believe that the Constitution is our greatest ally in public defense, and any American will believe in the Constitution wholeheartedly. And so if you pivot all of your messaging around the Constitution, I believe that you will have some success in getting them there. We have many of you may know Mark Lamb. He was a sheriff famous for having a slightly sawed-off shotgun and bulletproof vest. He wore a Gideon hat at our building day as well because he is a constitutionalist. And as much as he's one of those sheriffs who will go out there and get anybody that he thinks committed a crime, he does understand that our founding fathers, uh, wrote in, the Sixth Amendment, and so I think that that's really been our success with that. So anyway, so hopefully that helps you with the answer with the board and how we've really addressed that audience. And you really do need to know your audience, and that's important.
Yeah, totally fascinating. That's a different board makeup than almost any public defense office I've worked with, certainly. Um, as you saw, mostly people are observing like it's mostly ex-public defenders on the board, and in some instances, like folks who are law firm people, I think, end up on public defender boards, which is yeah, just very different. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, for
fascinating.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anybody else with
Um,
questions or
yeah.
anything? Go ahead, Paul.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't not seeing a lot of questions coming out. I mean, it's been, I think
Perfect.
the beauty of this presentation is it challenges people to like imagine in their own circumstance what it might look like to do this kind of thing, which then creates more questions for each of us internally than it does maybe for you. Like, what would this look like if I did it in my own area, etc. So, yeah. So,
Absolutely. I was just going to say, I'd be curious if anybody else has seen sort of like a public engagement style of public defense day that they saw as successful and wanted to share as well, because um, be super interested in, you know.
yeah, so I can't really talk about Public Defense Day or Gideon anniversary stuff, but at the Galt Center where I work, formerly the National Juvenile Defender Center, there was this about 10 years ago, the center did this Galt at 50 celebration, which was like a year-long celebration of very similar to there were sort of year-long celebrations about Gideon, um, uh, celebrating the Galt decision, which, declared that children have the right to an attorney in juvenile courts. And yeah, we're right now working on our Galt at 60, things. And we're already talking about involving sort of like youth to make art and to write things, offices to do their own sort of qualitative research type projects for story gathering. And we also talked about proclamations from uh, local and state governments, along all the different places where our youth defenders work. So it's something that I'm also going to be thinking about the things you've shared as we're working about that internally in our office for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
everything.
like the idea. Go ahead. Go ahead,
I was
Renata.
going to say everything I know about the original like few years of Gideon's Day was that it was all very internal. Um, you know, having cake and pizza in the office and promoting things on social media. But I don't know. I haven't heard of any of the external engagement beyond tabling or something. So this has been really impressive and thought-provoking. Or not thought-provoking, like inspiring, like action-provoking.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, Stephen, in Regal, it's interesting. I'm going to give away one of my boss better not down here. She'll be really angry but I don't think there's any Arizona public defenders on here. But I'm going to give away my 65th anniversary, which is in 2 years. But I am actually working on a play for our local high school to do a reenactment of Gideon, but with like some know your rights like in the middle of it and having sort of like some um, rights advising through the play as well. And I don't know if the local high school play will take it on, but I'm trying to add some comedy to it, a little bit of comedy as much as I can within the respect of what it is. But it might be something that like in Regalt as well could potentially like look at like what was the impact of that and maybe also just trauma of juveniles going through the system as well. So yeah. Anyway.
There was a question in the
Uh,
chat from Laurel
oh.
Rono. Has anyone done Gideon's Day celebrations at the law schools as a recruitment tool? And if so, what has that looked like?
Yeah, we have not. We did invite the law schools to this one, but yeah, they didn't come because it was during the school day. It was on a Wednesday, so it's probably a day that was kind of higher. We did think about that this year. Our summer internship programs are the recruitment happens in February, so we have already signed on our interns by that point, basically. But it's a really great idea to go out into. I mean, like one of the things I highlight in the toolkit that we have not done is gone out into the community more. And so I think that that idea of maybe asking the law school to partner with you and host it both at the law school for the public and for the students would be a really great way to also celebrate because I feel like that would be beneficial for sure. I don't know if anybody else has done the law school. But
Not looking like it. Yeah. Another thing to sort of inspire folks to think about what it could look like. Yeah. Any other final questions before we wrap up? Well, then I think that's it. Thank you so
all
much,
right.
Paul, for presenting these such a wide range of possibilities and ideas. Really exciting and as others have said, inspiring to think about what we can do in our own offices in our own areas. Even thinking from like the national perspective, what I can bring from this conversation to the Galt at 60 discussions that are starting in our office right now. It's going to be very, very useful. So yeah, really appreciate it, Paul. Thank you so much. And just a peek behind the scenes, thanks, Paul, for stepping up basically a week before when we realized we were probably going to have to take a bye month. And Paul was like, I got something. So this worked out really nicely, and we really appreciate it. Yeah. So thanks everybody for being here. Again, uh, you can go to our website, indigentdefenseresearch.org, to find how to join our listservs, to donate if you find it, in your heart to do so. And if you're on the listserv, you, as Paul said, would have gotten a solicitation for our spring virtual conference to sign up to be a part of that if you're interested. So thanks everybody for being here, and looking forward to seeing you all again at another one of these calls or at one of our other events very soon.